1895. Britain claims Kenya as a colony. Within years, they seize the most fertile land in the country, the White Highlands. 3,000 white settlers take control of 12,000 square miles of prime farmland, land that belonged to the Kikuyu people for generations. This was not colonialism. This was theft. By 1952, 1.5 million Kikuyu people, Kenya's largest ethnic group, are crammed into 2,000 square miles of exhausted land. Each family farms less than 2 acres. Meanwhile, each white settler controls over 4,000 acres. The math is simple. The injustice is staggering. The Kikuyu do not just lose their land. They are forced to work on it as laborers for the very settlers who stole it. They carry identity passes. They are barred from growing profitable crops. They cannot vote, cannot own land in the highlands, cannot live as free people in their own country. But resistance is growing. In Nairobi's streets and in rural villages, Kikuyu men and women begin organizing. World War II veterans return home expecting equality. They fought for Britain's freedom, only to find none waiting for them. The contradiction ignites a fire that will burn for decades. 1950. In the forests of Mount Kenya, secret ceremonies begin. Kikuyu people take traditional oaths, binding, sacred, unbreakable. They swear to fight for the return of their stolen land. The British dismiss these oaths as primitive savagery. They are wrong. This is organized military recruitment disguised as tradition. The oath spreads like wildfire. From Mount Kenya to the outskirts of Nairobi, from rural villages to urban slums, hundreds of thousands take the oath. The network grows in secret, invisible to British intelligence, unstoppable by colonial police. Kenya is a powder keg. All it needs is a spark. October 20th, 1952, Britain declares a state of emergency in Kenya. Before dawn, soldiers raid homes across Nairobi. They arrest 180 Kikuyu leaders in a single night. The British believe that cutting the head off the snake will kill the movement. They could not be more wrong. Among the arrested is Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya's most prominent political leader. The British charge him with managing the Mau Mau rebellion. He denies it. He was probably not directly involved, but it does not matter. By imprisoning him, Britain creates a martyr. Kenya does not quiet down. Kenya explodes. The crackdown is brutal and indiscriminate. British soldiers sweep through Kikuyu communities, arresting thousands. Any man, woman, or child suspected of sympathy with the Mau Mau is detained. Entire villages are emptied, families are separated. The British call it restoring order. The Kikuyu call it war. The arrests do not stop the movement. They fuel it. Across the Kenyan countryside, Mau Mau fighters launch attacks on white-owned farms, police stations, and loyalist chiefs who collaborate with the British. The uprising has begun. Britain expected to crush it in weeks. It will take them 8 brutal years. Thousands of Mau Mau fighters retreat into the forests of Mount Kenya and the Aberdare Ranges. They know this terrain. The British do not. From these mountain hideouts, they will wage a guerrilla war that will humiliate one of the most powerful military forces on earth. The forest becomes their fortress. Meet Dedan Kimathi, Field Marshal, military genius, Kenya's most wanted man. Kimathi operates from deep within the forests of Mount Kenya, commanding a guerrilla army that strikes without warning and vanishes without a trace. The British put a price on his head. He puts fear in their hearts. The guerrilla hideouts are invisible from the air and nearly impossible to find on foot. Bamboo shelters hidden beneath the forest canopy, supply caches buried in the earth, communication networks spanning hundreds of miles, 20,000 fighters in the forests, supported by over 100,000 civilians who risk their lives to feed the resistance. Kimathi's strategy is devastatingly effective. Hit-and-run attacks on isolated farms, police outposts, and colonial infrastructure. Strike fast, disappear into the forest. Britain responds with overwhelming force. 10,000 British soldiers, 21,000 forced Kikuyu loyalists, aircraft, and artillery. But modern weapons cannot defeat fighters who know every tree and every trail. The Mau Mau had women warriors. Meet Field Marshal Muthoni Kirima. She joined the resistance at 21 years old, one of only 3 women to hold the rank of Field Marshal. She recruited hundreds of fighters, led ambushes, and ran sabotage missions. In her own words, "We were not afraid." Muthoni was not alone. Women formed the backbone of the resistance, not just as fighters, but as spies, messengers, and supply runners. They smuggled weapons under their clothing. They carried intelligence past British checkpoints. Without these women, the Mau Mau could not have survived. Their story was hidden for decades. It deserves to be told. Britain throws everything at the Mau Mau, 31,000 soldiers against 20,000 guerrilla fighters. They bomb the forests from the air. They send patrols that never find anything. The guerrillas fight with makeshift weapons against one of the world's most advanced militaries, and they refuse to surrender. Britain is losing a war it cannot admit to losing. Unable to win in the forests, Britain turns its fury on the civilian population. They build detention camps, what they carefully avoid calling concentration camps. At the peak, over 90,000 Kenyans are imprisoned behind barbed wire. Entire communities are locked away. The British claim they are protecting Kenya from terrorism. The truth is far darker. Inside the camps, torture is systematic. It is not the work of rogue soldiers. It is official British policy. Beatings, castration, sexual assault, electric shocks, forced labor until collapse. The goal is to break the Mau Mau oath, to force prisoners to renounce the resistance. Many die, none are counted. The camps are designed to destroy the human spirit. Prisoners are classified by their willingness to confess. Those who resist are sent to the worst camps, subjected to the worst treatment. It is a pipeline of escalating violence. Confess or suffer. Betray your oath or be broken. This is what the British Empire looks like behind closed doors. Decades later, survivors finally speak. One testified, "They wanted to kill our spirit, but we refused to break." These are not anonymous victims. They are farmers, teachers, mothers, and fathers who endured unimaginable cruelty because they believed their land and their freedom were worth fighting for. Britain would deny their suffering for 60 years. March 3, 1959. Ola Detention Camp, northeast Kenya. 11 men refused to work. A peaceful protest. Guards beat them to death with clubs. Britain's official story: they died from drinking contaminated water. The autopsies tell a different story. Blunt force trauma. Murder. The Ola massacre becomes an international scandal. Britain can no longer hide. The Ola massacre reaches the floor of British Parliament. Newspapers across the world publish the autopsy findings. Britain's careful narrative that they are civilizing Kenya collapses. International pressure mounts. The moral cost of holding Kenya is becoming too high. The empire's grip is slipping. The Mau Mau may lose battles, but they are winning the war. October 21, 1956. After years of evading the entire British military, Dedan Kimathi is cornered in a gunfight in the forests of Mount Kenya. Wounded, he is captured alive. The British have finally caught their most wanted man. But killing the leader does not kill the cause. It never does. The trial is rushed. The verdict is predetermined. On February 18, 1957, Dedan Kimathi is hanged. His body is never returned to his family. Buried in an unmarked grave by the British, who hope to erase him from history. Before his execution, he speaks, "My blood will water the tree of freedom." 1960. Britain declares the emergency over. Their official death toll: 32 white settlers killed, 13,000 so-called Mau Mau terrorists. The real number, according to historians, between 50,000 and 100,000 Kenyans. Many died in camps from torture, starvation, and disease. They were never counted. They were meant to be forgotten. 1961. After 9 years behind bars, Jomo Kenyatta walks free. Thousands flood the streets to greet him. The man Britain imprisoned as a terrorist is now the most powerful political figure in Kenya. He forms the Kenya African National Union and begins negotiating independence. The man they tried to silence now speaks for a nation. The crowds chant a single word that echoes across Kenya: Uhuru, freedom. After 60 years of colonial rule, after 8 years of war, after 90,000 detentions and untold thousands of deaths, Kenya is on the verge of independence. The dream that Kimathi died for is about to become reality. December 12, 1963, midnight. The British Union Jack is lowered for the last time. In its place rises the flag of an independent Kenya, black, red and green. Jomo Kenyatta becomes the first Prime Minister, then President. The man Britain jailed for leading the Mau Mau now leads an entire nation. Across Kenya, a nation celebrates. In cities and villages, people dance until morning. For 68 years, they lived under foreign rule. For 8 years, they fought a brutal war. This moment belongs to every Kikuyu oath-taker, every forest fighter, every woman who smuggled weapons, every prisoner who refused to break. Uhuru, freedom, at last. But independence comes with a dark compromise. Kenyatta distances his government from the Mau Mau. Why? To appease Britain and protect white settler economic interests. The fighters who bled for independence are pushed aside. No compensation, no official recognition. The people who made freedom possible are treated as an embarrassment by the government they created. The betrayal cuts deep. Mau Mau veterans live in poverty while the land they fought for remains in the hands of the wealthy. White settlers keep their estates. Kenyatta's allies receive the spoils. The fighters get nothing. One veteran speaks the bitter truth that haunts Kenya to this day. We won independence, but who got the land? 2011. Kenyan torture survivors file a lawsuit against the British government. Britain's defense: there is no evidence of systematic torture. Then investigators discover 300 boxes of hidden documents in the Foreign Office. Documents that prove everything: systematic torture, murder, and a 60-year cover-up ordered from the highest levels of government. 2013. 60 years after the camps were built, 60 years after the torture began, Britain finally admits the truth. Foreign Secretary William Hague stands before cameras and says what survivors waited a lifetime to hear. The British government recognizes that Kenyans were subject to torture. Britain pays £20 million to over 5,000 survivors. Britain tried to erase the Mau Mau from history. They burned documents. They buried bodies in unmarked graves. They denied everything for 60 years. But the survivors would not be silenced. Kenya paid for independence in blood and silence. Now, finally, the truth is told. The fight for freedom continues.